What's the most WTF thing you saw at someone else's house that they thought was totally normal? More of an attitude. I remember waving the cigarette smoke away from my face and her dad saying not to because it was rude. I was prob 8 or 9 at the time and I grew up in a smoke-free home, so someone blowing smoke in my direction wasn't at all normal to me. And worst, somehow I was the rude one. Some smokers have an astounding lack of self-awareness. Growing up in the 80s, it's crazy how many people smoked in their homes. Once when I was a kid riding in our family car back seat with all the windows down, my dad's passenger threw a still-lit cigar out his window. I was sitting behind him. The still-lit cigar came back into my window and went down the front of my shirt. I got a third-degree burn and have the scar to this day. I remember my dad telling me to stop being such a baby about it as I cried. Oh God, not the poop knife story again. But now I need to know the poop knife story. Please? I had dinner at a friend's house once, when I was like 7/8, and they didn't allow any drinks at the dinner table. I had to stand in the kitchen and drink my water when I asked for it. I had a similar experience. Some people believe it messes up digestion. I've seen this before. No drinks allowed at the dinner table. My grandparents have had a human-sized mouse on their stairs for as long as I can remember. It has a bonnet and an apron and wears a long floral dress, and I've honestly got no idea where they got it from and why. What about the R.U.S.? OMG, I've seen that before at someone's house when I was younger, and until this very minute I was able to erase it from my memory. She was getting tongue-kissed by her adopted grandpa. And she wondered why I didn't kiss her when I left. Excuse me, what the fug? Did you explain it? And then maybe get her to realize it was not normal? We looked at a house where the current owners had small stone statues of angels next to every door and window. You had to move the statue to get through the door. They said, "We are Christian people. We didn't ask." Those were definitely weeping angels. Hope you kept an eye on them the whole time. For Christians, that sure sounds like a pagan practice. Do you think the angels made sure no one died from this insane fire hazard? They had a moose head with a large set of antlers mounted on the wall above the mantel. The strange part, as I once described, was that they had installed electric light bulbs behind the moose's amber glass eyes. At night, when the moose was turned on, it looked as though the beast was angry and ready to charge right off the wall. At least it wasn't a black goat head with red eyes. Although after typing that out, that would have been pretty cool too. They said, WTF, not badass. Their living room had 8 sofas in it. The room wasn't that big and there was no other furniture. It was like a maze. Was told it was for the Bible study they hosted at their home. Bible study. A friend's family eats their dessert from the same plate as the main course, even if the main course involved saucy foods. We did that when I was a kid. Even as a 6-year-old I thought it was disgusting. My in-laws do this. They sometimes rinse the plate but not all the way, and then it's all wet when my cake goes on its skeptical smiley face. My husband's best friend used to just have a lump of wax that he took off of cheese. Little Babybel wrappers, he just used to smoosh them all together and have them there, in his room, just chilling. I actually have one of those too. So it sounds pretty normal to me. Why would you throw away perfectly good wax? I'm sure someday I'll find a use for it. Good for sculpting. My friend's mom walked around the house in just her underwear. No shirt, no bra, just her underwear. Nice. Was she hot? I think bras are considered to be underwear. Had dinner at my cousin's house. My one and only visit there. They didn't have anything to drink with their meal. Didn't believe in it. Not even water. They also had a pet raccoon chained to a tree. OMG, this was my experience I posted about too. They gave me water when I asked, but I had to stand in the kitchen to drink it. Wild. Are there more families like this? Why? How? How are all the comments about the water and not the raccoon chained to a tree? My friend's house featured a life-sized cutout of his sister, who was away at college, that was moved into a different place every time I was over. Those people sound hilarious. That sounds hilarious though. You can put it different places and take fun pictures to send her. I feel like it was just a joke you weren't getting. One of my friends got married to a guy whose sister was on an LDS mission for 2 years, so they had a cardboard cutout of her at their wedding. It was funny, they even put her in some pictures. They kept their Christmas tree up all year with ornaments, but stored it in a walk-in closet. It was their only Christmas decoration, so it only took a few minutes to decorate for Christmas. It wouldn't feel like Christmas without the opportunity to argue with my spouse about how to get the lights on the tree. Why would they deprive themselves of that? Weirdos. My next door neighbor's entire decor. Awesome to me, but it's not every day you walk in and the shelves are lined with decorative skulls, spiders, various witchcraft items from ceiling to floor. She has a huge weirdly shaped jar filled with 100 or so little plastic skulls and glass cabinets filled with potion bottles and such. At one point, one whole wall was covered with the flags of the 4 Hogwarts houses because she threw her kid a Harry Potter-themed birthday party and didn't want to take them back down. Never been in the bedroom, but she's enthusiastically talked at length about her and her husband's BDSM collection that fills an entire closet. That sounds fuggin' lit as fug. I'd love a house like that. She had half a mannequin on her kitchen table that she dressed up. Just the head and torso, no arms and legs. Said it was because she liked some movie and this woman in a box that had no arms and legs. The same girl had a man blow-up doll that she dressed in clothes and buckled in her passenger seat in case someone wanted to carjack her. We called him Dan the Rubber Man. She brought him in work so he wouldn't melt in the car. She was weird. I had a blow-up doll guy like that too. Not only was it for deterring would-be carjackers, but also made it possible to use the carpool lane. My parents got him out of a SkyMall catalog as a joke one year. We just called him Fletcher. Wonder if it was the movie Boxing Helena? Edit, there was a lag. I didn't see the other comments. My bad. A framed hole in the wall. My friend had a mental breakdown once and punched a hole in their living room wall. Their mother framed it. Adolescence by Kyle, 2011, Modern Art. That's a great idea. If there weren't any other holes in the wall, it must have been effective. When or before my parents got divorced, my dad punched a hole in the wall. Then signed it, dated it, and just up moved out. In retrospect, was pretty fugged. While in elementary school, we lived in a 4-story apartment complex. Had a new neighbors move in just below us and they had 4 kids, I think. I had been invited over by the daughter that was my age. While getting the tour of her room and whatnot, I noticed streaks on the floor in several of the rooms and an odd smell. We get to her room and I move the door and there's human shit on the corner of the door. One of her little brothers is running around with diapers on and she explains to me that he's being potty trained. But explains it as if it's normal that there's dried shit behind every door because he's learning. Never went back to that house. Edit, streaks were in front of each door from the shit being dragged across the floor by the door. A very detailed and sculpted wooden dildo. The hell are you doing in my house? +10 WTF points if they actually use it. The skull of their beloved dead family cat was sitting on a bookshelf. Oh, that's our cat, Felix, flushed face. My friend hangs the toilet paper the wrong way with the end towards the wall. Some serious WTF. That is okay if you have cats or a toddler. Otherwise you run the risk of having an entire roll of TP spun into a pile on the floor or somewhere worse. Shouting at her own mother. Friend shouted, parents made it seem normal. Friends who act like assholes to their parents, especially in company, I lose respect for. I knew an Italian family like this. Argue, shout, hand gestures, the whole thing. What I have come to appreciate is that when it subsided, the argument was done. No hidden feelings. Nothing festering. Actually quite healthy. Not saying it's always like this, but there is a place for putting it all out there and getting it done with IMHO. Not at someone else's house, my own, but I recognize how weird it is. We have child-proof locks on the bathroom cabinet where the toilet paper is kept, and on the cabinet under the kitchen sink where the cleaning chemicals are. Despite there being no children in the house. My cat once destroyed a whole package of TP for fun. The bathroom floor was covered, and there was a trail of paper going down the hallway. He has also been known to open all the kitchen cabinets and bat around whatever he finds. A can of soup is fine, he can't really hurt himself with that, but not so much that bottle of chemicals. So we have childproof locks for the cat. Father walked around naked. Friend said, it's normal, we're family. At our house, we will sometimes walk from the shower to our rooms naked. We don't have too much modesty while getting dressed after the shower, so long as outsiders are not around. But just casually wandering the house in your birthday suite is a bit on the extreme side, especially if there are visitors. I can't imagine what my family would do if I just walked in the buff into the kitchen and started making a meal. The neighbors down the street from me are very rich, they've gone on all these hunting trips to Africa and have taxidermied trophy kills all over the house. I walk into the basement and one of the walls just has a full elephant head mounted on it. My friend cooked tomato soup, and their family doesn't add water. That means that the soup they eat is pure chunky, and it's not smooth. Like the Campbells? My wife did this once. It was like eating a bowl of ketchup. So my friend's family has a shrine for her grandma. When I first saw I was like, oh, she probably passed and this is a way to commemorate her, since we also have a little shrine for my grandma. I was on FT with her later on that night when I got home and asked about it, and turns out that her grandma is very much alive and healthy. She explained that she thinks her family is a cult with her grandma as the leader, and IDK every time I go to her house I freak out just a tiny bit. Hereditary. My mom's friend has a wax head of a Native American mounted on her wall like it was a trophy of an animal they shot and mounted. It freaks me duck out and I swear the eyes move sometimes. A fridge filled with bottles of Coca-Cola. I was impressed as I'd only saw the cans. They had buckets full of caps too. Obviously just saving up for the nuclear apocalypse. They'll be buying all the stimpaks. They had a room where they would just let their dog crap on the floor. It didn't look like it was cleaned often. My brother, about 6 at the time, came home from a friend's house upset and confused, and my mom figured out that the kids' parents had been watching porn openly in front of the kids. Needless to say, he wasn't allowed back. So fucked up. I was the friend. My dad was screaming at my sister until he went purple, and I didn't really understand why my friend's mom came and picked her up. That's what dads do, right? Wrong. A pot plant inside a birdcage with 2 small pythons inside as well. I have vague memories of a friend from kindergarten taking me into his dad's gun locker, which was a giant walk-in closet of guns. My parents never let me visit again. Yeah, if 5-year-olds can just randomly walk into the walk-in closet of guns, it's probably not the best environment. I've seen PPL that hang up used car wheels on the front wall of their house. Like a lot of them. House armor? Cutting pizza with scissors. Actually quite clever, but I had never seen it before and I've never seen it since. I had an experience so terrifying and disgusting, that it literally scared my mind. I don't know this woman's backstory entirely, but when I showed up to her place, there was trash everywhere. The bathroom was beyond a mess and the toilet looked like someone just took continual shits in it, without flushing, for a few years then just gave up. The kitchen sink, literally every room was a mess. For the short stint I was over there, I found a small-ish spot to sit and cower from the garbage. This shit was something you would see from a hoarder's house, on some Lifetime or Discovery show. It was just plain disgusting. I spent 1 hour there too long, and peaced out. I had the heebie-jeebies for a few days afterwards. So in short, her entire house was a WTF moment. Oh, and before I forgot to mention, it totally was not expected, from some short cute-ish Japanese girl, in the middle of Japan. If anything, that makes it even more WTF, as you usually don't see Japanese folks get that messy or nasty. I knew a couple like that. The guy was my friend, and he wasn't really a tidy guy, but he would clean occasionally. Normally he didn't because he worked 2 jobs and was just exhausted after work. The girlfriend was an absolute slob, though. She didn't work, wouldn't clean, and didn't even really bathe herself. Their apartment was covered in filth. Rotting food everywhere. Bathroom covered in filth, including used tampons thrown in a corner on the floor instead of in the trash. The kitchen had several cat boxes, they had like 8 cats, and it looked like the litter was never changed. There was a fish tank full of brown water and dead fish. This place was just horrendous. Eventually they had a child together and tried to bring it home to that place. I don't know the full story, but apparently someone filed a report with child services when the baby was a few weeks old. Apparently he had gone back to work and she didn't make an effort to really care for the baby. She wouldn't even change the baby's diapers. Child services came in and took protective custody. They told my friend that he could have his child back if he made the girlfriend move out and got the house cleaned. He did that, and got a friend to move in to help him with the baby. To this day the ex-girlfriend doesn't even have partial custody. A friend of mine's place is just an absolute mess with stuff everywhere. Now I grew up in a house with a mom who gets off of tidying up the house, so I'm used to extreme tidiness, but I can't imagine living in a house where you have to step over rubbish on the stairs to actually go upstairs. My ex-boyfriend's family would refill plastic water bottles and not clean them out. It absolutely grossed me out and often gave me sore throats from the germs. He would even happily drink mold in his water bottle that he used for work. A thermostat set to 80 degrees. A 5-foot dildo at my mom's friend's living room. It wasn't hidden at all. I am doing part-time freelance nursing ATM. One of the cases I attended was a rather large house in the middle of nowhere for an elderly man. When I was let in by his caretaker, I saw the old man lying in a box which was disguised as a bed. I was told it was because the family knew he was on his last legs and eventually he will pass on, so the box was his pre-coffin for the undertaker to take to the parlor, and it's a norm for their family to do this. Creepy, but that wasn't even the worst part. While I was waiting for the antibiotic drip to complete, I looked out the window and saw the backyard of the house. All the coffins of deceased family members were all above ground and you could open the window to see them in the coffins, preserved from the day they died. They were only lowered into the grave once the decomposition begun despite the preservatives. Apparently, it was part of their beliefs and family traditions. Friend of a friend had a whole wall of pet scorpions in enclosures, at least 15 of them. She was just really into scorpions, I guess.